The early 60s spawned the first generation of movie buffs that saw film as an art form that they were determined to be a part of. Bogdanovich came west with new bride Polly Platt looking for a way to break into movies.
They said to me, well, if you ever have a picture you want to make, we'd be interested in making a picture with you. So not too long after that, I called and said there's a book I'd like to do called The Last Picture Show. You can get it in paperback. Larry McMurtry wrote it. Bert said, well, send it on over. I said, why don't you buy it? So about a week later, he called me and said, well, it took me a while to find the goddamn book, but we got it, and we'd like to make it.
Looking at actors and actresses to play these parts, and I saw a magazine cover, and there was this girl with what I thought looked like a sexual chip on her shoulder, corkscrew curls, you know, blonde hair, blue eyes, and I said to Peter, doesn't that look like JC? It's just the way JC should look.
I didn't know who I wanted to have sex with. They were all so attractive. I was so turned on by the experience, the creativity of it.
I saw my husband falling in love with her, or falling in, you know, developing this crush on her.
And he was sitting in the row behind me, leaned forward and said, I don't know who I want more, you or JC.
Everyone's gone to the movies, now we're alone at last. Everyone's gone to the movies, now we're alone at last.
We didn't know enough. We were too successful. We probably were somewhat arrogant. I speak from a lot of us. And we made some mistakes, made big mistakes.
What happened to the directors like Peter, like Altman, like Peckinpah? These guys were doing whatever they wanted, and they were smoking dope, and they were drinking, and, you know, they lost their minds. It was the age of excess.
Kids, if you want some fun, see what you never have seen. Take off your cheaters and sit right down to stop the projection machine. Everyone's gone to the movies, now we're alone at last. Everyone's gone to the movies, now we're alone at last.
Trouble is, the studios, when they think you're infallible. Suddenly you're fallible, you make a mistake, you screw up, they lose some money. Then they get nervous about the next.
Nobody ever suggested the director wasn't the director of the movie, but then nobody should complain when you give him 100% freedom about why the pictures are costing so much or why they're not talking to the studio. And I think that was a terrible mistake.
I made the most vulgar, entertaining, exciting, actionful, sensoramic, give them a new thrill every 5 minutes, have it everything, sex, violence, humor.
Well, Zoetrope was the first attempt by a kind of outsider filmmaker who was going to bring together and form a commune of filmmakers. And it's to Francis's credit that he tried to put it together.
Francis Ford Coppola is the writer-director on the crest of the new wave of American filmmakers.
He'd gotten on the wall somehow, and he'd gotten, you know, the local authorities convinced that he should be there. And of course, he brought in the Trojan horse.
Would you tell us something about your young assistant, George Lucas?
Oh, he's not my assistant, actually.
Could you tell us about your young...
Associate.
Associate, okay.
George won an award to come to Warner Brothers and observe a film being made there, and he came when we were making Phineas Rainbow, and one day I was working on a show, and I kept seeing a skinny kid with a beard, and he was always looking. I went up to him and I said, well, you know, I said, who's that? And he said, well, he's observing you.
I think the student films are the only real hope. I think they're slowly beginning to realize that students know what they're doing.
I think one of the key factors in the success is that it's a positive film. It has heroes and villains, and that it essentially is a fun movie to watch. It's been a long time since people have been able to go to the movies and see a sort of straightforward, wholesome, fun adventure.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend, the end of our elaborate plans, the end of everything that stands, the end, no safety or surprise, the end, I'll never look into your again.
How can they do that, R2? That dreadful man putting his name right next to ours.
Can you picture what will be so limitless and free? Desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land.
What would it take to persuade you to go back onto a soundstage and direct the film yourself?
Well, I'd like to direct again. I mean, I'm very interested and still in directing.
George started out really as a documentary filmmaker with long lenses. And with long lenses, you didn't have to really get so close to the people.
He hated directing, George did, because he got sick all the time.
Quite happy not to talk to you at all, thanks, an actor.
I mean, that's a lot better.
He claims, he says he knows exactly what he wants. He just got no idea how to tell you.
George's style of filmmaking was difficult. He never said anything. He'd just say, action, cut, terrific. Well, actually, he sometimes said terrific. Often he said nothing.
George is more aloof, he's more private, and you can see that in his movies.
Well, I did say to George, you can type this shit, but you can't say it. And it's still true.
There's a line I remember from the original test, which is not in the film. I said, but we can't turn back. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aquilai or Sullus, and what there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault. And I thought, who talks like this? Come on, yeah!
George can do anything he wants now.
George Lucas, I'd like to torture you guys. George Lucas, I have my imagination.
It's tragedy.
George Lucas
works for good and also works for evil.
George Lucas, really, really small.
Or how a good person turns bad.
Or
it began with Mr. Lucas.
What am I going to do?
Boiling down religion into a very basic concept, the way it works.
There's not much you can do about it.
Get off the farm.
The way it works. Really, really small.
It's sort of,
it began with Mr. Lucas.
Sort of,
you're directing after all.
Sort of, evil. Timeless. Evil. Timeless. Evil. Evil.
Lucas.
People are just nuts for these movies.
The thing that killed movies was when they started doing box office scores. This film had come in first, this second, and I looked at that screen and I said, we're over.
know, it's an expensive movie. The film has to be one of the top 10 grossing films of all time in order to break even. A lot of the movies that are being made now have to do that. I feel I got probably more of a shot than the other movies that are out there.
Oh, I can't bear it anymore. Turn the dial. Quickly, get rid of him at once.